Elias Morgan stood near the wide observation window of the celestial ring station and watched the stars drift past like slow-moving lights in a dark ocean. The station floated between three major star systems, a place where different worlds met to talk instead of fight, to trade instead of compete. For many species, this place was a symbol of power and politics. For Elias, it was a place full of people, each carrying their own stories, hopes, and fears. He adjusted the small badge on his uniform that marked him as a human cultural liaison. The badge was simple, just a silver circle with a blue line across it, but it carried weight. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Some species saw them as clever builders, others as stubborn survivors, and many as emotional and unpredictable. Elias had learned not to take any of it personally. He believed that most misunderstandings came from not truly listening. Around him, the station's main hall shimmered with soft light. Tall beings with glowing skin walked beside short, floating creatures that spoke in musical tones. Robed diplomats moved in small groups, their voices low and careful. The air smelled faintly sweet, thanks to the many life support systems working together to keep every species comfortable. Elias smiled to himself. Comfort was a strange thing in a place like this. Everyone was far from home, yet everyone tried to make this place feel like one. He turned as a soft, chiming sound echoed across the hall. A group of Aurelians had entered. They were impossible to miss. Their tall, graceful forms seemed to glow from within, their skin like polished crystal touched by moonlight. Long, flowing garments drifted around them, moving as if carried by a gentle breeze even though the air was still. At their center walked Princess Sailira. Elias had seen her before from a distance. Everyone on the station had. She was not just royalty, she was a symbol. The Aurelians were one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy, known for their calm minds and deep knowledge. Their leaders rarely showed emotion, and their words were chosen with great care. Sailira moved with quiet confidence, her eyes scanning the hall as if she were observing everything and nothing at the same time. Her gaze passed over groups of diplomats, security officers, and traders, until, for just a moment, it stopped on Elias. He felt it like a small shock, not painful but surprising. Her eyes were a soft, glowing gold. There was no judgment in them, no pride, only curiosity. Elias lowered his head slightly in a respectful greeting, unsure if she would notice. To his surprise, she inclined her head in return before continuing on her way. He exhaled slowly, realizing he had been holding his breath. Later that day, Elias was assigned to guide a small group of visitors through the station's cultural wing. This part of the station was his favorite. Instead of meeting rooms and formal halls, it held open spaces designed to show pieces of different worlds. There were gardens with plants that glowed in the dark, rooms filled with soft sounds from distant oceans, and walls that displayed art made from light, sound, and even shifting gravity. As he explained the meaning behind a human mural made of old star maps and handwritten notes, he noticed a familiar glow at the edge of the room. Princess Sailira stood there, alone this time, her hands folded gently in front of her. Two Aurelian guards waited near the doorway, silent and still as statues. Elias finished speaking to his group and offered them time to explore on their own. Then, taking a steady breath, he approached her. "Welcome to the cultural wing, Your Highness," he said, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "Is there something you would like to see?" She studied him for a moment, as if weighing his words, his tone, and perhaps something deeper. "I have seen many displays today," she said, her voice soft and clear like wind through glass chimes. "But I was told that humans place meaning in their stories, not just their creations. I wish to hear one." Elias blinked, surprised. "A story?" "Yes," she replied. "A personal one, if that is allowed," he smiled. "I think I can manage that." They walked slowly through a garden filled with tall, glowing plants that changed color when touched. The light painted gentle patterns across Sailira's skin and Elias' uniform. Elias told her about Earth, about cities that never slept and quiet places where the sky was so full of stars, it felt like the universe was leaning in close. He spoke of his grandmother, who used to sit on a small porch every evening and tell him stories about the past, about people who faced hard times and still found reasons to laugh. Sailira listened without interrupting. Her head tilted slightly now and then, as if she were trying to see the world through his eyes. "Your people speak often of emotion," she said after a while. "Joy, sadness, hope, regret. You treat them as guides, not as weaknesses." Elias thought about that. I guess we don't always guide them very well, he admitted with a small laugh. But we try, feeling something reminds us that we're alive, that what we do matters. They stopped near a pool of water that reflected the glowing plants above like a second sky. In my world, Celira said quietly, we are taught to master our feelings, to place duty above desire, to serve our people without question. That sounds like a heavy responsibility, Elias said. It is, she replied, but it is also an honor. Still, I sometimes wonder what it would be like to choose something simply because it feels right. Elias did not answer right away. He looked at the reflection in the water, two very different figures standing side by side, sharing the same quiet space. I think, he said slowly, that choosing something because it feels right can be scary, but it can also be one of the bravest things a person can do. Celira's glow seemed to soften. Time passed without either of them noticing. The station's lights shifted to signal the coming of the artificial night cycle. Soft music filled the air, a blend of sounds from many worlds. Eventually, a gentle signal from Celira's communicator reminded her of her duties. I should return, she said, though her voice held a hint of reluctance. Of course, Elias replied. Thank you for listening to my story. She paused, then said, thank you for sharing it. As she walked away, Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest, the kind he usually felt after helping someone find their way or understand something new. From across the garden, Celira glanced back once. The human stood there, simple uniform, tired eyes, and a quiet smile. For the first time in her life, she felt something she could not easily name. It was not duty. It was not honor. It was a gentle pull, like a whisper in her thoughts, asking a question she had never dared to consider before. And somewhere in the vast, peaceful silence of the station, among stars that had watched countless civilizations rise and fall, a small, quiet connection began to grow. The next day on the celestial ring station began with a soft change in light. The artificial sun slowly brightened, casting warm colors across the long halls and open plazas. For many beings, it was just another cycle. For Elias Morgan, it felt different, though he could not say why. He stood in a small human cafe near one of the station's inner gardens, holding a warm cup of dark liquid that reminded him of home. The smell of it mixed with the sweet scent of alien flowers drifting in from outside. He watched people pass by, each moving with their own purpose. Some floated, some walked, some glided. He had learned to enjoy these quiet moments, where the galaxy felt less like a great machine and more like a shared living space. His communicator gave a gentle tone. He checked it and saw a message request marked with the symbol of the Aurelian royal house. His heart skipped a beat, though he quickly told himself there was no reason for that. The message was simple. Princess Celira requests your guidance today, cultural exchange. Personal level. Elias stared at the words for a moment, then smiled. He finished his drink, straightened his uniform, and headed toward the meeting point near the central gardens. Princess Celira was already there when he arrived. She stood beside a wide path made of smooth, glowing stone. Light from the ceiling above reflected off her skin, making her seem almost like a figure made of starlight. Two guards waited at a respectful distance, giving them space without truly leaving. You came quickly, she said. I didn't want to keep you waiting, Elias replied. She nodded as if that answer pleased her. I wish to understand your people better, she said. Not from records or reports, from you. Elias gestured toward the path. Then I think we should walk. Humans do some of their best thinking while moving. They began to stroll through the gardens. This section of the station was designed to change with the seasons of many worlds. Today, the air was cool and carried the sound of distant water. Trees with silver leaves lined the path, their branches swaying gently even without wind. Celira looked around with interest. This place feels alive, she said. It's meant to, Elias replied. We built it so no one feels trapped inside metal and glass all the time. They walked in silence for a while, comfortable and unhurried. Tell me, Celira said at last, why did you choose this role? You stand between worlds. That cannot be easy. Elias thought about that. I guess I didn't choose it for any grand reason. I grew up in a place where people from many cultures lived close together. I saw how small misunderstandings could grow into big problems. I wanted to help stop that, even in small ways. She considered his words. You value small actions. I think they matter more than we realize, he said. A kind word, a moment of patience, those things can change how someone sees the world. They reached a quiet pond where soft, glowing fish-like creatures swam in slow circles. Celira knelt beside the water, watching them. "In my world," she said, "every action of a royal is recorded, studied, and judged. We are taught to move like pieces on a board, useful, predictable." "That sounds lonely," Elias said gently. She looked up at him. "It is not meant to be. We are surrounded by advisors, scholars, and people who serve us, but few who truly know us." Elias sat down on a nearby bench. "If it helps, most humans don't really know each other either. We just pretend better." She gave a small, almost shy glow of light, something that might have been a smile in Aurelian terms. They spent the next hours sharing simple things. Elias told her about human music, how people used sound to express feelings they couldn't put into words. He played a soft melody from his communicator, something slow and gentle. Celira closed her eyes as she listened, her glow shifting in soft waves. "It feels like memory," she said, "even though I have never heard this before." "That's kind of what music does," Elias said. "It makes you feel something familiar, even if it's new." She told him about Aurelian history, about how her people had once traveled the stars in fragile ships, guided only by light and careful thought. They valued knowledge above all else, believing that understanding the universe was the highest form of purpose. As they talked, the distance between them seemed to fade. They were no longer a princess and a liaison, just two beings sharing a moment. Eventually, Celira grew quiet. "Elias," she said, using his name for the first time. "Do humans truly choose their partners, their companions in life?" He nodded. "Most of the time, yes. There are traditions and families who have opinions, but in the end, it's usually a personal choice." "And if they choose wrongly?" she asked. He smiled softly. "Then they learn. Sometimes it hurts, but we think it's better to choose and learn than to never choose at all." She looked out at the water again. "In my culture, unions are decided for balance, for alliances, for the future of our people. Feelings are considered distractions." Elias did not argue. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. "I believe that it keeps our society stable. But I also believe that something is missing." They continued walking, passing through an open plaza where children of many species played together. Some ran, some floated, some chased small light orbs that changed color when touched. Celira watched them with quiet wonder. "They do not seem to care where the others come from," she said. "Kids are good like that," Elias replied. "They see someone who wants to play, not a species or a rank." One small, round creature rolled toward them, its body glowing bright blue. It made a cheerful sound and bumped gently into Elias' leg. He laughed and nudged it back with his foot. Celira let out a soft sound of surprise, then something like laughter. The sound felt light in the air, like a new note added to a familiar song. As the day moved on, they found a quiet platform overlooking open space. Beyond the transparent barrier, stars stretched out in every direction, endless and calm. "I have traveled far," Celira said. "Seen many worlds, but standing here with you, it feels different." "Different how?" Elias asked. "Less like I am observing the universe," she said. "More like I am part of it." They stood in silence, watching a distant ship pass like a slow-moving star. "When I return home," Celira said softly, "my path is already decided. There are expectations, plans made long before I was born." Elias felt a weight in her words. "That's a lot to carry." "It is my duty," she replied, "and I will not abandon it, but I will remember this feeling of being simply myself." He nodded. "I'm glad I could be part of that." Her communicator chimed, signaling another meeting. She turned to him. "Thank you for today, Elias. You have shown me a side of the galaxy I did not know existed." "And you've shown me that even the most advanced worlds still have questions," he said. She gave a gentle glow, warm and steady. As she walked away, Elias watched her go, feeling that same strange warmth in his chest. He didn't try to name it. From a distance, Celira paused and looked back at him once more. The human stood small against the vastness of space, yet somehow in that moment he felt larger than the stars themselves. And in her thoughts, a quiet idea began to form, fragile and bright, like the first light of a new dawn. The great hall of the celestial ring station had never looked more beautiful. Soft golden light flowed from the high ceiling like a calm sunrise, and long banners from many worlds drifted gently in the air. The floor reflected the lights above, making it seem as if everyone walked on a sea of stars. This was a day of celebration. Leaders, nobles, and diplomats gathered to honor new alliances and future plans. Music filled the space, slow and graceful, blending sounds from many cultures into one peaceful song. Elias Morgan stood near the edge of the hall, as he often did during large events. He was more comfortable watching than being watched. His role was simple tonight: be present, be helpful, and stay out of the way. But his eyes kept drifting to the center of the hall. Princess Celira stood beside a tall Aurelian counselor, her glow brighter than usual, her posture perfect. She wore a flowing garment made of thin, shining fabric that shifted colors with every step. Around her, other Aurelians formed a quiet circle, their attention focused on her. Elias felt a small tightness in his chest. He told himself it was just the pressure of being in such a crowded space. A soft voice spoke beside him. "You know the princess, do you not?" He turned to see an elder diplomat from a water-based species. The being floated gently in a clear sphere of liquid, its many eyes watching him with calm interest. "I've guided her around the station a few times," Elias said. The diplomat made a slow, thoughtful sound. "Then you are part of an important moment." Elias frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The diplomat gestured toward the center of the hall. "Tonight, Princess Celira is being formally introduced to her future political partner, a union meant to strengthen old bonds." Elias felt the words settle heavily inside him. He looked back at Celira. She was listening as one of the counselors spoke, her expression calm, her glow steady. But Elias, who had walked with her in quiet gardens and shared simple stories, thought he saw something else in her eyes: distance. The music grew softer as the counselor raised a hand. The hall fell silent. "Honored guests," the counselor said, his voice smooth and clear. "Today we celebrate not just peace, but the future. Princess Celira of the Aurelian people will soon join with Lord Therx of the Solari Union, creating a bond that will guide our worlds for generations." A gentle wave of approval moved through the crowd. Polite sounds, respectful gestures, glowing lights from many species. Lord Therx stepped forward. He was tall, his form made of warm, glowing energy held together by a faint, golden outline. He bowed to Celira, who returned the gesture. They stood side by side, symbols of something much larger than themselves. Elias clapped with the others, his hands moving almost without thought. His smile felt stiff on his face. After the formal part of the event ended, the hall slowly filled with quiet conversations and small groups. Food and drink from many worlds appeared on floating platforms. The music changed to something lighter. Elias moved away from the center, finding a quiet corner near a wide observation window. He watched ships drift past in the distance, their lights blinking slowly. He did not hear Celira approach. "Elias!" Her voice was soft, but it carried. He turned, surprised. "Your Highness, please," she said. "Not tonight, just Celira," he nodded. "Celira." They stood in silence for a moment, the noise of the hall fading into the background. "You saw the announcement," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "Congratulations." The word felt strange as he said it. "Thank you," she said. "It is as expected." They walked together along the edge of the hall, finding a small balcony that overlooked open space. The stars beyond were bright and endless. "I wanted to find you," Celira said. "Before the night ended." "I'm glad you did," Elias said. She rested her hands on the smooth railing, looking out into the dark. "When I stood there beside Lord Therx, I felt the weight of every generation before me, every choice they made, every path they followed." "That's a lot for one person to carry," Elias said. "It is the role of a princess," she replied, "to be a bridge between past and future." Elias leaned against the railing beside her. "And what about the present?" She turned to look at him. Her glow softened just slightly. "The present," she said, "is where I met you." The words hung between them, quiet but powerful. Elias did not know what to say. He had never imagined himself in a moment like this, standing with a princess under a sky full of stars. "I have learned much from you," Celira continued. "About choice, about connection, about what it means to be seen not as a symbol but as a person." He swallowed. "You've taught me things too, about duty, about seeing the bigger picture." They shared a small, gentle smile. In the distance, a ship passed close to the station, its lights reflecting across the balcony and over their faces. "I will not turn away from my people," Celira said quietly. "They need me. The galaxy is not a simple place." "I know," Elias said. "But," she added, her voice lowering, "I needed you to know something before I step fully into the path set for me." She hesitated just for a moment. "I wish," she said softly, "I could marry someone like you, human." The words were barely louder than the hum of the station. But to Elias they felt like they echoed across the stars. He looked at her, truly looked at her. Not a princess, not a symbol. A being standing at the edge of a choice she was not allowed to make. He took a slow breath. "You deserve," he said carefully, "to be chosen for who you are, not for what you represent." Her glow flickered just a little. "That is what humans believe, isn't it?" she asked. "Yes," he said, "not because it's easy, but because it's honest." They stood together in silence, the moment stretching out like a fragile thread. Behind them, the door to the balcony opened. A few diplomats stepped out, laughing softly, then moved away when they saw the two of them. The whisper did not stay a secret for long. By the next cycle, quiet conversations spread through the station, not as gossip but as something thoughtful. The Aurelian princess spoke of choosing, some said. A human showed her another way, others whispered. Elias noticed the change in small ways. A diplomat from a rigid world asked him about human families. A trader from a distant system wondered aloud why alliances always had to be sealed by tradition instead of trust. Celira, too, felt it. In council meetings, when she spoke, others listened more closely. Not because of her rank, but because of the idea she carried with her. That night, long after the celebration ended, Elias stood again by the observation window where he had first seen her days ago. The station was quiet, the lights dimmed. He thought about the words she had whispered, about the galaxy, so large and old, yet still learning new things. Across the station, in her private chambers, Celira stood before a wide window of her own. The stars looked the same from here, but she felt different. She touched the place near her chest where a soft warmth seemed to live now. She did not know what the future would bring. She only knew that somewhere, on this vast station, there was a human who had shown her that even a princess could dream of being more than a role. And in that shared understanding, something gentle and powerful began to move through the halls of the galaxy, like a quiet promise that even the oldest traditions could learn to change. The celestial ring station felt different in the days after the whisper. The halls were the same, the lights still glowed softly, and ships still arrived and departed in slow, steady lines. But something unseen had changed. Conversations lasted longer. Questions were asked more often. Beings who once spoke only of duty and plans now spoke, sometimes quietly, about feelings and choice. Elias Morgan noticed it everywhere. In the small cafe near the inner gardens, a rigid diplomat from a crystal world asked him how humans celebrated life events. In a trade hall, a merchant from a distant system wondered aloud why partnerships had to be arranged instead of discovered. These were not loud debates. They were gentle thoughts, shared like small lights in a dark room. Elias listened, as he always did. He answered honestly, never pushing, never judging. He spoke of families, of friendships, of love that grew over time instead of being decided in advance. He spoke of mistakes, too, and how humans believed that even wrong choices could teach something valuable. Through it all, one thought stayed with him. Celira. He had not seen her since the night on the balcony. He knew she had been busy in council meetings and private discussions with leaders from many worlds. Still, he found himself looking for her glow in every large hall and quiet corridor. One cycle later, a message arrived on his communicator. "Princess Celira requests your presence. Central Garden, private meeting." Elias stood very still for a moment, then took a slow breath and headed toward the gardens. The central garden was one of the most peaceful places on the station. A wide dome of clear material opened to space above, allowing the stars to shine through like distant lanterns. Below, paths of soft stone curved around pools of water and tall plants from many worlds. The air was cool and calm. Celira stood near a small bridge that crossed a narrow stream. Her guards were farther away than usual, giving her a wide space of privacy. "You came," she said as Elias approached. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied. They walked together across the bridge, stopping in the middle to look down at the slow-moving water below. "A great deal has happened," Celira said. "So I've heard," Elias said. "People are talking." She gave a soft, thoughtful glow. "Yes, they are." She turned to face him fully. "The council called a special session, not just about my union, about our traditions, about the way we make choices." Elias raised his eyebrows slightly. "That sounds serious." "It is," she said. "Some were angry, some were confused, but many were curious," he smiled. "Curiosity is a good start. They asked me why I spoke the way I did," she continued, "why I questioned something so old and accepted." "And what did you tell them?" Elias asked. "I told them," she said slowly, That I met someone who showed me a different way to see the galaxy, not as a board of moves and counters, but as a place filled with people who wish to be understood. Elias felt warmth rise in his chest. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the gentle sound of the stream. "The council has decided," Celira said. "My union with Lord Therx will still move forward. It is important for peace between our worlds." Elias nodded. He had expected this. "But," she added, "they have also agreed to begin changing our laws. Future royals will be allowed to choose their partners if they wish. Duty will remain, but choice will now stand beside it." Elias let out a slow breath he did not realize he was holding. "That's incredible." "It is only a beginning," she said. "Change will take time, some will resist, but the door is open now." He looked at her, seeing not just a princess, but a leader. "You did this," he said. She shook her head gently. "No, we did this. You planted the idea. I only gave it a voice." The stars above them seemed brighter somehow. In the days that followed, news of the Aurelian decision spread beyond the station. Messages traveled across star systems. Some worlds reacted with surprise, others with interest, a few with concern. But many, especially younger civilizations, felt a quiet sense of hope. Humans, once seen as simple and emotional, were now spoken of as teachers of something rare: connection. Elias received a message from Earth. His supervisor congratulated him, though Elias wasn't sure what he was being congratulated for. He had not signed any treaties or led any grand talks. He had only walked, listened, and shared stories. Yet those small actions had traveled farther than any ship. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed for the artificial night, Elias and Celira met again in the observation hall. They stood side by side, watching a long line of ships depart, their lights fading into the dark. "You will be leaving soon," Elias said. "Yes," Celira replied. "My people are calling me home." He nodded. "The station won't feel the same without you." She looked at him. "Nor will the stars." They shared a soft smile. "I often wondered," Celira said, "what humans would be remembered for in the galaxy. Your technology, your ships, your ability to survive on difficult worlds. And now?" Elias asked. "Now," she said, "I believe you will be remembered for reminding us that even in a universe of endless space, what truly matters is the space between people." Elias laughed quietly. "That sounds like something my grandmother would say." "I would like to meet her," Celira said, half serious. "I think she would like you," Elias replied. They stood in comfortable silence. A small human ship moved closer to the station, preparing to dock. Its lights blinked in a familiar pattern. "I have been offered a new assignment," Elias said, "a position helping build cultural centers on newly connected worlds." "That suits you," Celira said. "You are good at building bridges." "Not the kind made of metal," he replied. She nodded. "The kind that last longer." Celira reached into the folds of her garment and took out a small object. It was a smooth crystal, glowing faintly. "This is an Aurelian memory stone," she said. "It records moments of great importance to its owner." "I would like you to have it." Elias hesitated. "I can't take something like that." "You can," she said gently, "because this moment is important to me." He accepted the stone, feeling a soft warmth spread through his hand. "Thank you," he said. She touched the railing lightly. "No, thank you." When the time came for her departure, a small group gathered at the docking bay. No grand ceremony, no long speeches, just quiet respect. Celira stood at the entrance of her ship and turned back to look at Elias one last time. "You changed my world," she said. He shook his head. "You changed your own, I just walked beside you." Her glow brightened, warm and steady. The ship's door closed, and moments later it drifted away, joining the slow dance of lights moving into the stars. Elias stood there long after it was gone. Life on the station continued as it always did. New visitors arrived. New talks began. New questions were asked, and in small ways across many worlds things began to shift. A young royal on a distant planet asked their council if they could meet people before choosing a partner. A trade leader from a strict society started a program to teach emotional understanding alongside law and duty. A group of children from different species started a shared school where they learned each other's stories before learning each other's rules. None of these changes were loud, none were sudden, but together they formed something powerful. One quiet human, standing by a window, had reminded the galaxy of something it had almost forgotten. That no matter how far the stars stretch, no matter how old or advanced a civilization becomes, the greatest discovery is still each other. Elias placed the memory stone in his pocket and walked down the hall, ready for his next journey. Somewhere, across the vast sea of space, a princess looked out at the same stars and smiled. And between them, across light years and worlds, a gentle connection remained, not bound by duty or promise, but by something far stronger: understanding.